Back to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, January 6th edition of the podcast. It is a 2025 first edition of the podcast. Jake, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all of our listeners and to all of our friends that make this show go. How was your New Year, Jake?
New Year's was about as good as you could expect for someone in their 30s with a 2.5-year-old. Thought I was going to be awake enough. Sat down on the couch at 10:30 and instantly knew that I was not going to make it through a movie. So we put on a movie that I did not care about, and I fell asleep on the couch at 10:45.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you had a good New Year's Eve.
I did. How about you?
I had the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where let's just say that my New Year's Day was rough. It involved ibuprofen, but it was fun nonetheless. I was also down in Southern California during that week, and I saw you.
I
don't know if you remember that, but
I do. It feels like forever ago.
We hit up a stick time at Great Park Ice on the 5 Point Arena ice surface. So for anyone that thought, hey, those guys look familiar, well, it was us. Got some good skating in, got some good shooting in. Jake hit one really nice one-timer.
Yeah.
With his 90 flex stick.
It is not 90 flex, but sure.
It is very, it is very stiff is all I'll say.
Yeah.
And Jake with his you have this mid curve, which I did not realize.
Yeah.
So
sometimes you got to take it back to a very neutral curve, be able to have a backhand.
I don't mind your curve.
Passes.
I don't mind your curve, but what frustrated me trying out your stick was the tape job for the knob, the grip. It was just you have this crazy tape job. I
love it.
But I'm also a minimalist when it comes to taping the knob area. So I'm sure people's minds are just going crazy with these choice of words and possible innuendos. But anyway, so let's just move on to the podcast here. We've got a lot to talk about today.
We do.
We've got a ton to talk about.
We skipped 1 week and a ton happened. The Ducks are on a bit of a winning streak right now, and there was a massive signing that happened.
Yeah, massive signing. So let's just start there. So Frank Vatrano has signed a 3-year extension with the Ducks, and he will have a cap hit of $4.57 million per year. Now, originally that was supposed to be $6 million a year, but it finally happened. We got a deferred salary contract, and so $3 million of that per year value is deferred salary, and it's going to be paid out at $900K per year for 10 years, beginning in 2035. Also, should add that Vatrano has a 7-team no-trade clause. So basically, that $6 million AAV is shaved down to 4.57 because that difference in money is going to be paid out over 10 years down the line. So very interesting contract. We have a lot to talk about here.
Is it bad that I got so caught up in the innuendo of the or I guess not innuendo, but about the cap hit and dealing with the all of that different type of stuff with this? It didn't click for me that the payment started in 2035. I thought that the payment started at the end of the 3-year term.
Nope.
And went for 10 years. It just clicked for me.
That's why
this is starting 10 years from now, and it will go on for 10 years after that.
That's why on the broadcast last night, when Ali made the joke of his team dinner that he's picking up the tab for is going to be deferred, and he was like, I'm going to pay it when I'm 40. That's why, because in 10 years is when he'll start paying this. So where do you want to start with this? I mean, first off, I think I'll just jump in and say this. I mean, the Ducks just made the binary decision of bringing back Frank Vatrano at all because he was a pending UFA, and it was not sure that he would be back. And so just that alone, I think, is noteworthy that they chose to bring him back on a multi-year deal.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's something where I think over summer, we flip-flop back and forth on this. We get asked it every podcast about move him, extend him, all the different types of stuff. But over summer, I think you and I both had settled in that Frank Vatrano was likely just going to get an extension. That seemed like the logical conclusion of this. It seemed like he was happy as a Duck. He had, I forget where I was listening, but there was a profile on the NHL's website where he said he's really happy with the team, really happy with where they're going. And it seems like Pat Verbeek really likes him as a player. I mean, put up however many goals he put up last year. Greg Cronin likes him as a player with how much he uses him in different situations. Like, it makes total and complete sense that he was going to get an extension from this situation. And I guess from this question for you, before we get into the nuances of this contract, but realistically, Frank Vatrano at best gets you what? Maybe a first-round pick?
Oh,
Maybe.
We're talking like what he would have gotten on the...
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the window to maximize his return has already well passed.
I'm just talking about specifically like at this deadline. If he was moved at this deadline, would he have gotten a first?
I think that the maximum for his value would have been first round pick equivalent. So maybe a first, maybe a second plus a prospect, but like it was going to be something. Honestly, he might not have even gotten a first round pick. Now I think about it, he might have just been a second rounder.
So let's just say favorably that he would have gotten a late first round pick.
Sure.
Realistically, the Ducks are at the point in their window or in their rebuild with everything is that an additional late first round pick is not really going to help them that much necessarily. They have accumulated all of that talent. I think that there is an argument to be had that Frank Vatrano for 3 more years is more valuable to this team than the additional late first round pick. And I think that that is probably the calculus that the Ducks made from looking at this and looking at what he brings to this team in their mind.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, and I don't necessarily disagree with that idea as a whole. I think that, yeah, the pick that the Ducks could have gotten for Frank Vatrano at this point in their rebuild is just not really that valuable. I mean, we've seen the track record on late first round picks with this team, with this GM, and so is that more valuable than bringing back a kind of cost certainty type player that you're familiar with, you're comfortable with? I get it. I think that like the decision to bring him back from that lens is a fine one. Yep. My issue, and I'm just gonna skip to the issue part.
That's fine.
Is, and this is like well documented, so I'm not breaking any big news here, is that I am not the biggest Frank Vatrano fan just as a player. Like, he seems like a great guy. He spoke really glowingly about the Ducks and wanting to be part of this thing and in the area. Like, he seems really committed, and I think that's great. And I think that he's done pretty much everything he possibly can to maximize his value with the goal scoring and the hustle plays and all of that. I am not the biggest believer just like in his overall game. I think that on a championship team, he really is a third liner. And right now he's a first liner. I think that kind of inflates his value a little bit. But so like if it were up to me, I probably would not have done this deal at all. I would just have traded him because I just don't necessarily value the player. But if you look at the cap hit that he's going to be getting, that he's going to be accounting for, the 4.5 mil, we'll call it, like that's just, with the rising cap, that's just not going to be a number that gets the Ducks into any kind of trouble for what you could argue is a quality third liner.
Yeah, and just for reference, Evolving Wild had him projected at 4.97 mil over a 3-year term. So that's kind of where the market probably would have been at for him. This is also purely for an extension. So he signed slightly below that, largely due to the deferred salary, because to get into that slightly, basically the way that this is going to work, like Felix had mentioned, is that half of the contract is being deferred to be paid out at 2035 for 10 years after that. And so instead of this being a $6 million cap hit, because the total contract is worth $18 million, 18 divided by 3 is 6, it is actually a $4.57 million AAV. And there are going to be people that are out there that are going to start saying, well, the Ducks are cheating here, they're deferring, all the different types of things. The salary is not being accounted for in the cap. It actually is. And that's one of the interesting things I think with the deferred salary is that the reason why that cap hit is 4.57 instead of 3, because the only amount that he's actually being paid each of those years is 3, is because there's essentially an adjustment that's being made for the fact that it's being paid out in 2035.
Yeah.
And due to the interest rate at the moment of that contract being signed, the equivalent of the additional $3 million in 2035 in today's money is $1.57 million. Because today's money is always going to be more valuable than future money. 1.57 or $3 million in the future is not equal to $3 million in the present. And so that will reduce that cap hit to equate for that there is going to be inflation, that money is going to go up. And so all of the money in this deal is accounted for, because at the end of the day, in current money, in current dollar value, I'm just doing the very quick math, but 4.57 times 3 is, if my calculator would work, 4.57 times 3 gets 13.71. So an $18 million deal with half of it deferred is the equivalent of $13.71 million today.
Yep.
And that's essentially the calculation that's happened here and how this ends up working out. And the reason why Vatrano would do this, by the sounds of it, is that he's planning on living elsewhere. I think I saw something that he said or something like that of being another sunny state. So likely going to move to Florida.
Yeah.
And where there will be no income tax.
Yeah.
And so that's his probably logic here, is that he will take that money and is willing to take it for a little bit less than what it actually is, but is not going to have to pay income tax on it when that is paid out.
Yes. So that is an aspect of this that I feel like has been kind of not explained very well, just reading the different...
Hopefully I explained it okay.
No. The part you explained was great. You did a good job. But the tax implications, and we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that, but the implications of just who does this benefit and who is the driver, this was kind of painted, I think, by some of the reports as, oh, well, Vatrano gets to save all this tax money because of the deferral. Well, if the money hadn't been deferred, Vatrano would make more money on his current salary, or would have made more money than with this current setup. So
Correct.
if it had just been straight $6 million a year times 3, he would have had more money taking home than with this deferral. Now, I haven't calculated out into the future of what that $900K is going to be in 2035 in the state of Florida, but we don't have all the numbers there. But he would have made more money now. So what this really says is that this deferral, mainly in terms of present value, this deferral benefits the Ducks the most because they get to bring down the overall cap hit, but Vatrano gets the money that he feels maybe he should have gotten on top of that, or that the difference in the value later down the line.
Yeah, I think it's a creative way to both get to a cap hit that the Ducks felt was reasonable for them long term, because I think 4.57 with the rising cap, and I think eventually that's going to be a third line player. I think that's perfectly fine for what Frank Vatrano is. And I think
exactly.
I have no issues with that cap hit for him for the next 3 years. And it sounds like obviously the same thing for Pat Verbeek and the Ducks. But this also probably allows them, because there was probably a divide there, right? Frank probably wanted maybe 5.5 would be my guess.
I think that's where this all comes from, is that I think Frank Vatrano probably wanted more than this. And this way, everybody walks away happy. The Ducks get their number, and Frank Vatrano gets the money that he kind of felt he needed on top of this later down the line. And now he can also tout that, I'm going to get it tax-free in Florida or whatever. So it's kind of like everybody walks away happy in this. But make no mistake, like the most lucrative way for this to have been structured short-term would have been for Frank to just get all the money up front.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like this is kind of it's cool when you can kind of see the fault lines in a contract and like where things kind of originated from. And of course we don't know exactly how it went down, but just thinking through it logically, it makes sense that that's how it would go down. Also, I think that Frank Vatrano mentioned in an interview that the Ducks were the ones who came to him with this.
Yeah. So
Jeff Solomon, the Ducks assistant GM, their capologist, was kind of the originator of this idea, taking inspiration from the Shohei Ohtani contract. And I don't really think there's much to analogize with that contract and this one outside of the deferral.
I mean, even the way the deferral works between the two is so different, because MLB has the luxury tax system and it's only the salary that goes towards that. Whereas in hockey, at least the total value of the contract in today's money is being accounted for.
Yeah. But I think that, to me, the reporting that Jeff Solomon was the one who came to Vatrano with that kind of suggests that there was that divide you were referring to between Vatrano, the number he wanted to hit, and the number that the Ducks wanted to hit. And the Ducks coming to him with this solution is it seems like a creative way to get out of that bind, instead of having this extend later into the season, or maybe they would have settled at 5 or something like that.
Yeah, and I think that this is great because, I mean, I think as a Ducks fan, the read on this outside of the player, outside of all that, there's two kind of reads that I have on this that I think are both very positive from a Ducks fan perspective. One is that we've heard Pat Verbeek talk about the LTIR situation, right? When at the pancake breakfast or whatever it is, and he's kind of said, I want to be in the situation where we can take advantage of that they're just utilizing the rules that are put in place when people are getting mad about it and saying that Vegas is cheating, all this different type of stuff. Like, these are the rules, and you work within them. And I think what we're seeing here is that the Ducks are more than willing to figure out loopholes, not loopholes, because it's not a loophole, figure out things that they can take advantage of. And the other thing that's important to note here is that this was not just done willy-nilly. This was coordinated with the league. They had to have buy-off from the league to do this. Like, they had, I guess, worked with the league, and the reason why it was delayed until Sunday, I think Elliot Friedman had mentioned, was that it was basically done on Saturday, but they had to get full buy-off from the league on it, and it took some back and forth there to get that buy-off. And so I think that really deserves some credit from Pat Verbeek and Jeff Solomon's perspective of they are going out there and trying to figure out ways to really take advantage of things. And the other part of this is that I think that they are also understanding of where they think the cap is going to go for this team, and that they are wanting to keep things lower, and that there could be an opportunity to spend money this summer, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I don't know if I really buy that aspect of it, because how much more was Frank Vatrano going to get? I mean, if he had his cake,
5.5?
I mean, we have the number 6. Like,
yeah, 5.5 to 6 probably.
Like, does that really make a huge, like, to me, what this, I mean, there's a few different ways you can look at this, and nobody's necessarily right or wrong, but I think that they had a number in mind for Vatrano, and they didn't necessarily want to go, they didn't want to go past it, because we know Verbeek is a tough negotiator.
Fair.
But they also really value Vatrano, and they want to keep him around, and this is kind of a way for everybody to walk away happy.
Fair point.
Also, I mean, I think that having a Vatrano in the fold, willing to sign a multi-year deal, a kind of well-liked veteran around the league, he's like always on spitting chicklets, blah, blah. I mean, this is a good kind of PR for the Ducks and free agents of like, hey, look, that we have someone here who could have tested the market, who could have probably done better than what he got with the Ducks, and he wanted to stay. And you know, there's all this talk about California taxes and blah blah. I mean, he chose to stay, and so it kind of shows that, you know, hopefully the Ducks will be more viable as a free agent destination.
Yeah. And I think there is definitely something to that. I mean, we heard Ryan Strome talk about that with, I mean, we broken down the Jacob Trouba trade in so many different directions, but the fact that Ryan Strome had the quote that it's nice after years of guys being sent out that someone's actually being brought in.
Yeah, like, he's choosing them.
Like, there is something to that from the morale perspective.
Well, because if you think about it too, like, you know, we've talked a lot about the Alex Killorn contract on this podcast, and one of the big things that we've always talked about is like, well, the Ducks basically overpaid to get Killorn in the fold, and maybe to overcome some of those tax concerns that players have. Well, this feels like a way for the Ducks to overcome those concerns while still getting the player and not having to pay more, while not having to overpay in the present. So I'm curious to see if this will become the norm for the Ducks with UFAs.
Yeah.
But as we discussed, like the tax side of this for the actual player is not, like, that's not really the driver here, but it's just a way for the Ducks to not have to overpay to bring guys in. Because you don't want to do that every single time. Like, that's not an ideal way to go about things. So this way you can, quote unquote, overpay, except your overpayment is going to come later on. So yeah, I mean, it's not like I said, I'm not the biggest Frank Vatrano guy. I of course respect what he's done and what he's doing, but
letter grade it.
Letter grade it?
Yep.
I'll give it a B. Give it a B. I'll give it a B. Like, it's fine. You know, it's good to fine. Like, it doesn't really move needles. Needles aren't being moved, but needles aren't being moved downward either. Yeah. It's just kind of fine.
Like, I think Vatrano at this cap hit, if we'll get into more of the team play and coaching and that type of stuff coming up soon. But if, whether it's this coach or a future one, plays him in his proper role, in a third-line role, and not in an elevated first-line role, I think he is going to provide ample value at that cap hit.
Well, that's
And
the thing is like he's not going to be on a top line with Strom and Terry forever.
correct.
That's just not going to happen. And so yeah, once he eventually gets shifted down the lineup a little bit, once the kids kind of take a firmer hold of the lineup, I mean, hell, even Trevor Zegras is coming back soon. Like that's
Yeah.
probably going to shift around the lineup a little bit. I just yes, like this first line Strom or sorry, first line Vetrano is not a like I don't expect that to be the case 2 to 3 years from now. I mean, hell, right now he's playing in every situation. He's on the top line, he's on the penalty kill, and he's on the power play. Like if that's still the case in 2 to 3 years, then the Ducks are just not a good team, or they have a really dumb coach, which, we'll see. That's always in play.
Yep. Yep. So, any other thoughts on the contract before we get into the games?
Nope.
Okay. Where do you want to start with these games? Because last time we recorded a podcast was, what was it, Boxing Day, day after Christmas?
Yeah.
And so the Ducks have played the Philadelphia Flyers and lost them, the Edmonton Oilers at home and won that game. They beat the New Jersey Devils at home. They beat the Winnipeg Jets on the road, lost the Edmonton Oilers on the road, and then beat the Tampa Bay Lightning at home.
Yeah.
I'll let you take the wheel here for how you want to drive this discussion.
They have won 4 of their last 5 games.
Correct.
They are 6 points out of the playoffs. Right now they are within 7 points out because Vancouver picked up a overtime point tonight. They are 7 points out. They are 6-4-0 in their last 10. They are about to embark in a stretch that we can call meaningful games because if they keep winning games, they are going to climb up this little ladder and be in shouting distance of the playoffs.
Correct.
Hell, even less than shouting distance, in like whispering distance. Right now, they're in shouting distance. But in these last 5 games, what's interesting, and I think the way to pick this apart is really just high level because going through each game,
Yep.
That'll come out naturally. But
Yep.
what's interesting is that they've won 4 of their last 5, and I think that what's really worth noting in these last 5 games is that they've played exclusively really good teams. They've played the Oilers twice, once at home, once away. They've played the Devils, and they've played the Jets, and they've played the Lightning. Like that is a murderer's row.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep in mind the Ducks have been the worst 5-on-5 team for most of the season. And so they are winning these games. They are finding a way against very tough teams where you don't expect them to dominate. And so I think that right there we need to figure out like how are they doing this? Is this sustainable? And is this something where fans can look at and say, yep, this is the start of something big?
So this is where it's kind of an interesting dichotomy of this 5-game stretch to me. Of the Edmonton game at home, I think that there's a lot that you could look at from that game and see so many positives because that was potentially one of the best games they've played all season. Probably the best game when you consider the opponent that they had.
Yeah.
That they outplayed Edmonton. They were able to generate a ton of chances off the rush. I think that was one of the games McTavish looked really good with Cutter Gauthier. And the same thing happened against the Devils. The Devils game probably not as good because they had a very disappointing first period where they had to be bailed out by Luka Shostal, but they really, really were able to find their game in the second and third period and kind of tighten things up from the 5-on-5 metrics perspective. And so I think if you're looking for like the positives removing the wins, those are the games where you look at like they were able to expose teams and generate a ton off the rush. And I think that was such a good sign to see in those games because up until that point, it felt like the Ducks it felt like they were trying to really bog down games. It felt like they were going for what Greg Cronin wants of chipping pucks in, winning board battles, that type of stuff. And then against Edmonton and New Jersey, they took advantage of teams that were being aggressive in the offensive zone and jumped on that to create a lot of rush opportunities. And that was what really drove those games for the Ducks. From the positive perspective, were those rush opportunities. On the flip side of that, though, the Winnipeg game, the Edmonton game on the road, and then the Tampa Bay game, to me personally, not great games. I think that they had moments within each of those games where they looked good. The Tampa Bay game, the first 10 minutes. I think the first little stretch of the third period in the Edmonton game. I think the first period in the Winnipeg game. Like, they had stretches where they looked good. But in totality, I mean, they ended the Winnipeg game with a 30% expected goal share, 37% expected goal share in Edmonton, 36% expected goal share in Tampa Bay. Like, these were not good games to me where they really relied upon, in Winnipeg, timely goal scoring. and in some ways goals that maybe wouldn't be sustainable to go in all the time. And I think against Edmonton and specifically against Tampa Bay, absolutely stellar goaltending. And granted, they lost to Edmonton, but still they got great goaltending from Lucas Schostal. And so to me, this is kind of a weird spot where I think there's a lot of positives that can be taken away from this 5-game stretch. But I think this team is being more competitive. They've locked things down defensively. The things that you're hearing from Greg Cronin about them playing the way that he wants them to play in these last 3 games. The Tampa Bay game was really happy with their game. To me, those are the concerns that I have, because that is just not what's lining up with the numbers, with what my eye tests are showing in these games also, that they are playing like they are the second worst team at 5-on-5, and they're getting rewarded because they have great goaltending in these games. And there are also some other decisions that we'll get into, but I think if the Ducks team that shows up, that played against Edmonton at home and against New Jersey at home on this little stretch that they're embarking on, we could see this Ducks team get into a much better spot. But if the team that we saw these last 3 games, which is closer from a metric perspective to what we've seen throughout the entirety of the season, if that's who they're going to be down the stretch, then there are going to be losses that are going to start coming for this team.
Yeah, so I do think that those first 2 games of the last 5 games were really good. They were just the better team against the Oilers, the first game against the Oilers. And I do think that there is something to be said for when this team is at home and they can control matchups, and Greg Cronin isn't as paranoid about sheltering younger players. I feel like they play a little more freely. The way that they can kind of roll out their lines is a little more, Greg Cronin is not playing it as safe in those games because he has control over the matchups. And then against the Devils, I mean, again, it's one of those things where the Oilers and the Devils are both fantastic teams. The Devils are arguably the best team in the NHL. So my expectations are not that the Ducks are going to dominate these games. And in the first period against the Devils, they got outplayed. They got outshot. The power plays contributed to that. They had a lead after the first period, but then they kind of quietly but consistently turned things around. They were able to generate chances, and they walk away with 2 wins in 2 games, and they leave to the road trip, and it's like, yeah, things are looking pretty good. It's not perfect, but these are signs of progress. And I thought that what really stood out in those games, just from, because everybody was talking about rush chances after those games, like the Ducks had found the fountain of rush chances, the fountain of youth finally. But really, if you watch those games, the reason that it looked like they were getting rush chances, sometimes they were truly rush chances where, for example, the Devils late in the game are pressing. They have like 4 guys beneath the face-off dots in the Duck zone, and the Ducks are able to get a turnover and they quickly go the other way. But a lot of the times, it's just that a standard rush attack turns into an outnumbered attack, turns into an odd man rush because the defensemen were so eager to join the rush. Like Jackson Lacombe was joining every rush. Pavel Minchikov was joining the rush. Drew Hellison. Hell, Jacob Trouba was jumping up. And I feel like when the Ducks are playing in that way, they are a much more dangerous team. When their D are engaged and active like that, they are just a different team. And I mean, we'll get into it, but Jackson Lacombe just looks dominant. But then against Winnipeg and Edmonton, I feel like on the road, especially in a back-to-back, especially against 2 dangerous teams, again, the Jets are really good, as are the Oilers, they kind of default to this different style where they're not as willing to jump up in the rush and have the D join. They're very much in a shell defensively. They kind of take what they can get here and there, but they just play a different style. And it's interesting because if you just look purely at shots on goal in those 2 games in that back-to-back, like it's not really that bad. The Ducks actually outshot the Oilers in that second game, and they were barely outshot against the Jets. So they kind of find a way to really grind the game down to this very fundamental, basic level. The problem is that if you're choosing to, if you're just constantly defending, constantly chasing the play, even if you're not necessarily bleeding grade A chances over and over, it's just going to catch up to you, and it's going to nullify your ability to really generate dangerous offense. So we kind of saw both sides of the coin, where I didn't think that those road games were necessarily awful, but they were just very committed to just preventing, like, this is a clumsy way of saying it, but they were more committed in a way to preventing the other team from winning than going out and getting the win on their own. Like they were very much in that prevent style.
Like I'm looking at the game flow chart from Evolving Hockey for that game. The Ducks almost were flat from an offense perspective in the third period against the Winnipeg Jets. And that would be what? It was a tied game at that point in time.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So in a tied game, they just really did not generate anything in the third period. I mean, they didn't generate really a whole lot in the second period either, to be fair. And then against the Oilers, they had a really good start to that third period. That was kind of what I was mentioning. Where that was their best stretch. And then they got the goal. And then once they got the game-tying goal, and this is kind of what we've seen, and I guess this is my overall frustration, is that Greg Cronin is kind of defaulting to these old hockey men tropes, these almost, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, Randy Carlyle-esque tropes of game tied late on the road, let's just clog it down as much as possible. And they generated nothing offensively after that point. They had, I think, one chance after that. But outside of that, not really anything. And you're seeing it with his choices also, right? I think against the Oilers, once the game was tied up, Cutter Gauthier didn't see the ice. Or no, that happened. Yeah, once the game was tied up, Cutter Gauthier did not see the ice again against the Oilers.
Yeah, he was benched for over 10 minutes of the third period, and I'm still very confused why that happened. Because watching his shifts, I was like, well, he didn't do anything wrong. I think it was just a matter of Cronin picked the guys he thought were the most trustworthy. And what's hilarious is that they shortened the bench because you shorten your bench because you decide, okay, we're in a tight game. There's certain guys we trust over other guys that we don't. And sure enough, there's a total defensive breakdown that happens anyway. I just think it's weird to shorten your bench on the tail end of a back-to-back. Like, to me, that's the time where you're more willing to roll four lines and use everybody's legs.
And then, granted, they won the game in Winnipeg in overtime, but to play Brian Dumoulin over Pavel Mintyukov in overtime is a weird decision to me. Decision to make in that point. Same thing. I don't think Cutter Gauthier saw the ice in overtime either there. They had Robbie Fabry on the ice. And so I think my frustration right now, and this all will culminate into last night's game, I think, eventually when we get more in depth on that. But it's these old hockey man type tropes that are happening of the Gudas or not Gudas, the Dumoulin Trouba pairing is playing way too much. Jacob Trouba's played 23 minutes against the Winnipeg Jets. He played, let me see real quick, he played 20 minutes against the Edmonton Oilers, and against Tampa Bay he played 23:49. And this is essentially the veteran pairing that Greg Cronin has now trusted, and they are now being thrown out there every other shift. And you're seeing against Tampa Bay that they essentially for lack of a better term, benched Olin Zellweger and Drew Helleson with the 8 minutes left in the game. They saw the ice after it was made a 2-goal game, and we're just essentially going back and forth between Gudas Lacombe and Dumoulin Trouba. And it's these kind of old tropes that are happening. And those are my big frustrations right now, that these decisions that I really disagree with. Same thing with scratching one of Mintyukov or Zellweger over a veteran defenseman that probably should get scratched here and there. Gudas should not be playing in every game. It's probably better if he doesn't play in every game for his long-term play. And the same things that are applying to these young players are not applying to the veteran players. The fact that you have these decisions being made with the lineup from the forward perspective. Like, there's all these things, and they're getting rewarded with these wins. And you have against Tampa a coach that is praising the team and the effort that they have when that was not a good game against Tampa.
The Tampa game was, I think, the worst game of these five. That was the one where I was just like, yeah, they were just...
And to praise the defensive effort in that game is just completely missing the point, honestly, from a coaching perspective. And so my overall frustration with, I think, is specifically this 3-game stretch, and where I think, to be quite honest, I'm disheartened with this team at this point in time, is that we're not seeing decisions being made that are beneficial long term. And you are seeing that in how they're playing, in their on-ice play overall, whether it is, like you had mentioned, they're really kind of trying to slow down, clog up the game, not really going for the win, sitting back, all these different types of things, whether it's playing veteran players and sending them out there a bunch instead of developing these younger players, getting them in important minutes. If you go back to the reason why they were looking to move Cam Fowler on the Elliot Friedman podcast, he had mentioned that the 3 young left-hand shot defensemen should get ice time and be in important minutes. Whether you go back to Pat Verbeek's comments about the team after the Fowler trade, saying that these younger defensemen don't understand why they're being scratched and that they need to be in the lineup at this point because in some ways is an untenable situations. All of these kind of things that point the team needing to go a certain direction, and the decisions being made actually on the ice are the exact opposite from that, and the play doesn't really reflect it, but they're still getting results, and in some ways can reinforce that negative play and those decisions that are being made as being the right ones because they're resulting in these wins. And I think that is my overall frustration right now. And they could very well come out against the Calgary Flames, play a fantastic game, and I'll eat these words. But right now, I'm just disheartened, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, can I hearten you a little bit?
Sure.
Can I hearten you? I'll offer the other side of the coin.
Sure.
So I think I agree with a lot of the things you're saying. I think that right now it does very much feel like they are prioritizing, just eking out points, as much as possible. But in a way, like, isn't that what this season is about, though? This season, we've said, is about turning a corner. It's about picking up points and playing meaningful games, and that's what they're trying to do. So I can't necessarily call for them. I can't call for them to do that and then fault them for trying to do it.
I think the manner that they're going about it is the incorrect manner, I guess.
And I don't disagree with that. But the original, just at bottom, the sentiment of we are trying to win now, I think is the right one. This is a team that should be competing. I
would agree.
And then if you look at how does this affect the kids? Well, Leo Carlson is still getting minutes. He's still not with the line mates I would want him to, but with the injuries right now, and the Strome, Terry, Vatrano line sticking together, there's just not really a whole lot of options for him. Mm-hmm. He's still getting his minutes. Mason McTavish and Cutter Gauthier are consistently shining every single game.
Agreed.
Like, those two guys are playing awesome, and they are key parts of the future, and they are getting meaningful minutes. They may be getting, Gauthier is getting sat in some situations, but by and large, they are playing, and they are getting important looks, and they are contributing, and they're proving that they are up to the task. So you look at those 3 guys as kind of your young nucleus up front while you're missing Trevor Zegras, and those guys are thriving, and that part of it looks great. And then you look on the back end. Jackson Lacombe is playing over 20 minutes a night. Like, there are games where he's playing 25 minutes. Like, he is playing, like, against the Jets, he played 24-55. Against the Oilers the night after, he plays 25-35. Like, he is playing a ton, and he is a kid. He is part of this young nucleus. Mm-hmm. He is getting the reps. He is earning every bit of it. I think that in the last 5 games, Jackson Lacombe has been their best player. Like, I
would agree.
And he is being elevated. He is being elevated by this coaching staff.
I would agree.
And then you look at, the third pairing of Zellweger, we'll call it the menage a trois of Zellweger, Hellison, and Minchikov. Those 3 on the third pairing, right now it is very problematic that one of them has to sit. I agree with that. I think that is important to note, and it's frustrating that none of the veterans are ever going to sit. It's frustrating, and I think that it's not right. I think that it's harming, especially because it really seems to be boiling down to Zellweger and Minchikov. It's harming their development because those guys should be playing. That being said, I don't mind the notion and the approach of putting Hellison and Zellweger or Minchikov and Zellweger, whoever, together as kind of a kid third pairing, of a sheltered third pairing where, yes, I would like to see them play bigger minutes in a bigger role, but kind of getting to play together on a pairing where they can thrive together, I think that that's not a bad thing. The problem is that the way Cronin is handling it right now, they're getting kind of the leftover minutes of whatever Dumoulin and Trouba are eating up. So I don't think it's all bad. I think that if you look at this recent stretch, yes, there are decisions that are frustrating, and there are kind of structural elements which are very frustrating, mainly referring to Minchikov sitting. But I just don't think that we're not at this super negative inflection point. You know, like the way the team is playing right now is kind of how they've been playing, and especially against the competition that they were facing. Like, I don't know if expecting anything different is that reasonable.
I think for me, I think it's the culmination of, you're right. This is no different than how they've played. This is the second worst team at 5-on-5. This season,
which is not a good thing, by the way. It's just
that is just the reality of this team. This is a poor defensive team. They are the worst in the league in expected goals against per 60. They are I think they are teetering close to the Dallas Aikens 2022-2023 levels.
They're allowing over 3 expected goals a game, which is a big number.
And you look back on that Tampa game, right? You look at the third period. I actually wasn't able to watch it live and came back from it, but they allowed so many glorious chances. Like, it's insane.
That game was their worst one for sure.
Like, and oddly enough, actually, at 5-on-5, the Edmonton game, they allowed more expected goals against. They allowed over 3 in both of those games. Like, this is not a good defensive team. And so I think maybe it could be me reacting to the narratives around this team, cleaning up the defensive game, when that's not exactly the case. And this may just kind of be a culmination of what they've been this season, fully hitting me through this stretch. And it feels like there's just not accountability for how they're playing because of results.
The thing, too, is that this is a very kind of one-sided sample where they're playing only contenders in this 5-game sample. Like, they've had games where they've looked a lot better. And even within this sample, they still had one really, really good game against a contender and a better game against the Devils, who are also contenders. So, like, you know, up next, they're going to have teams like the Blues, the Flames, where I think that those teams are still better than them overall. But those are, you know, the Flyers. Those 3 games I'm circling as games where I think that they're going to look different, hopefully. But I think that they will look different than what they've shown the last few games. So yes, there are things that are frustrating, but I think macro things are still. This is a good thing to have happen to the franchise. Yeah. Now, if their takeaway is, oh, we're doing everything right,
correct,
and this is how we're going to play, then that's problematic because, I mean, just look at the stats. It's clearly not a tenable and a repeatable strategy. And I doubt that they look at that Tampa game after the fact and are like,
I hope so.
They are not worth what they're being paid if they think, oh, getting outshot 37-25 or whatever is like a good game. I doubt that they think that. Yes, they got their opportunistic goals, but that wasn't a good game, and I'm sure that they know it.
Yeah.
But I do think positive momentum is real and is important, and it's important for them. Now the question is, can you harness that and turn that into something that is repeatable, that is sustainable? Because the way that they're winning right now, you know, potting a couple goals here and there where, you know, you kind of get that timely goal that they've been chasing all season, right? They've talked so much about timely goals. They're getting the timely goals now. The thing is that those timely goals are kind of just covering up otherwise kind of lackluster performances.
Well, they're getting timely goals, and I mean, that's the part we haven't talked about yet.
Mm-hmm.
Of the reason the Ducks are in the position they're in is goaltending. That is without a doubt the number one and number
like you're
two
talking
and
like
number
where they are in the
three
standings.
Yes.
Yeah.
For people talking about where they're at in the standings, and that if you hear people talking about the Ducks and saying that they're more competitive now, these different types of things, the number 1, number 2, number 3, maybe maybe 10 reasons why they're there, it's all goaltending. Like they are getting probably the best goaltending tandem in the league. John Gibson played amazing against Tampa Bay. He's been good since coming back into the lineup. He has a couple games where maybe he's not at his insane level, but then he has games where he really plays great. And Lucas Dostal is a Vezina finalist so far this season. And I think that is the part that maybe isn't talked about enough with this team, is that they're where they're at because of that. Like, that is covering up a lot of blemishes for this team.
Yeah. I think it was Allers on one of the broadcasts that basically said indirectly that the Ducks are allowing the sixth most slot shots against this season, and that's probably according to the SportLogic data that they get access to. Because he was like, yeah, well, let's just say the Ducks aren't sixth least in slot shots against. I was like, oh, okay. So
I mean,
which is kind of sad to me, because the one thing that this system, right? The one thing that this system that Greg Cronin plays is all about is preventing slot shots, is preventing dangerous looks. It's like, yes, we're gonna let you, control our zone. We're gonna let you control the puck on the perimeter, but you're not getting to the middle. And if that is indeed true that they're allowing that many slot shots against, then it shows the system isn't even accomplishing its kind of basic task, its basic fundamental calling card. So that's problematic.
Well, it checks out also if, like, yes, maybe if this team was not in their own zone as much, that system that is meant to stop things getting to the neutral or getting to the slot, maybe that's useful if you're able to cause turnovers. But at a certain point, when you're caught in your own zone as much as you are, I think back to the Winnipeg game where it felt like
you're going to break down.
You're going to break down. You're going to allow these chances, regardless of how structurally sound you are. That's just naturally going to happen. And that's kind of the issue that's happening so far. I think it was in the Tampa game where Jacob Trouba kind of got caught not going high enough out, gave Braden Point too much time, and he's able to take a little shot that gets redirected in front of the net, and Gibson just makes an insane save. And so, but yeah, and by the way, just avoid is bringing up saying I'd watch all stats before December because it's an entirely different team now. The numbers since this, December 1 are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, the defensive numbers are like 3.2. Like if you look at the numbers from a defensive perspective, the only good stretch they've had was when they actually had 4 young defensemen when Fowler was out injured.
Well, also if you like just watching the last 5 games, the way they're playing is exactly the way they've been playing all season. In fact, it's almost like an exaggerated version of it, especially the last 3 games. So I don't know if I would say just throw out half the sample or whatever.
And this narrative that Jacob Trouba coming in has really cleaned things up on the defensive side. It's like you said, it's the same.
I will say, I do want to give Jacob Trouba some credit. I think that he is playing well within kind of what he can do. Right?
I would agree.
He's a limited player. He is not this all-star. Like, he is not as good as the Ducks think he is, but he does do some things well. I do think that there have been instances where he kind of shuts guys down along the boards, really eliminates them out of the play. I think there was one play where he shut down, was it Jack Hughes? Or there was someone really good that he shut down in open ice where I was like, wow, I did not expect that. There's also, I think that his puck moving, he has made some mistakes, but it's generally very safe. And then there have been instances where he jumps up into the play in the offensive zone, and I think he looks really effective doing that. Now, there are also times where he miscalculates and it turns into a rush the other way.
Yep.
He doesn't have the speed to compensate, but I think him individually has been fine. It's just that the way he plays is so conservative. It really plays into what Cronin wants to do, but it just allows these possessions against to just keep getting longer and longer and longer, and eventually you're going to break. You're going to allow the chance.
And that's kind of my point here is that there's this narrative going on right now, if you listen to the Ducks broadcast, things like that the Ducks have cleaned up their defensive side of the game since Jacob Trouba coming in.
They really haven't.
Even national media says that. Like, I briefly was listening to the DFO show, and they said bringing in Jacob Trouba has brought a new element of leadership to this team. And
that might be
on the ice.
That might be true.
Well, and bring something on the ice for this team. And so it's just
he brings something that they don't have a lot of, which is like a play stopper, kind of physical net front guy who can also make some plays. That is true. He does bring something new, but this notion that like they're a new team with him, I mean, that's just false.
Yeah.
So what's the cutoff date? I'm just curious.
December 7th, I think. I think his first game was the 6th.
When did he? Okay, so let's see.
His first game was a Monday. What was the first Monday? December 9th was his first game.
Okay, December 9th was his first game. I'll just set it to the 8th just in case it skips. So let's see. Where do the Ducks rank at 5-on-5 and from December 8th to today? They are 30th at 5v5 XGF percentage, so they're a little better. They went from 32nd to 30th. There you go.
Aren't they? They're 31st currently. Sorry.
Okay, well,
they went from 31st to 30th.
They're at 42% during that span. Also, the Kraken. Oh my God, the Kraken are 37%.
What's their defensive numbers during that stretch?
Yeah, let's see. Maybe I'm just not being charitable enough. They are 30th in expected goals against per 60 during that time. Like the thing is,
what's the raw number? What's the number?
3.16.
So they're slightly better. I think they're 3.2 right now.
So they're slightly better, but still disastrously bad.
Still extremely. For the record, I think that the 22-23 season, which is the worst in the analytics era, was 3.4.
Oh, you want to know the difference? You want to know the difference in perception? They're 10th in goals against during that time.
There it is.
I mean, that's literally it. They are allowing 2.1 goals against per 60 at 5-on-5, and the expected goals would say they should be allowing one more, actually more than one per 60. I mean, I'd be curious if you looked at some of the Sport Logic data, maybe their slot shots against have improved. Like maybe there's some, like, if you really peel the onion like a bunch more layers, maybe things look better. But like, to me, that top level indicator is usually not wrong. Like, it's just not a good thing to be 30th, even if maybe you're allowing slightly less quality against, because goals against, expected goals is still a cumulative stat. It's still not a perfect quality stat. Anyway, this whole like, that is where I'm 100% with you, where the narrative that this is like a new team, a new and improved team, like that is just, they are who they've been, which is why I'm just not really that moved one way or another with this recent stretch, because it's like this is nothing new.
I think for me, this stretch got me to kind of where you've been at, which is that Cronin just is not the person, and he is actively now making decisions that are not beneficial to this team.
I think that the thing that has frustrated me the most is just that, you know, this team just still really struggles to generate offense, reliable offense, and recently they've gotten timely goal scoring. But we're just not
to get timely goal scorer. You're not generating a lot of offense.
But yeah, timely. We're not seeing a lot of sustained offense. So like, but there have been glimmers. Like the first Oiler game was really good.
Yep.
The Devils game was really good, and then they kind of just went into a shell after that. So we'll see these upcoming games against Calgary, St. Louis, and Philly. Those are games that I'm looking for them to do better. But man, if you look at this upcoming road trip, they've got a 6-game road trip: St. Louis, Philly, Carolina, Washington, Tampa, and Florida. They've got no back-to-backs on that, so that helps. But what do you think their record will be in that 6-game stretch?
All right, give me the teams again.
So St. Louis,
okay.
We'll go team by team. St. Louis, do they win that game?
I'll say they win in St. Louis.
Philly.
Actually, no, flip that. They lose in St. Louis, win in Philly.
Oh, and then sorry, they do have a back-to-back. They have a 3-4. Okay. So they have St. Louis, Philly, and then they've got Carolina on the tail end of a back-to-back.
They lose to Carolina.
And it's a short turnaround. It's at 2 p.m.
Okay.
And then 2 days later, Washington.
Lose to Washington.
2 days later, Tampa.
I think they lose to Tampa. I think Tampa wants vengeance. So I think that they get one win out of this road trip.
And then they play the Panthers to end the road trip in Florida.
I'll give them the Panthers game. Why not? I'll give them one more. So
they're gonna get a funky game. But I think, okay, if any, for the people that truly believe this team has turned it around, you may be right. I'm not discounting that entirely. But if they are who you say they are, this next stretch, this 7-game stretch will tell us what we need to know, I think. Yeah. I mean, you know, you've got a very winnable game against Calgary on Tuesday, tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this very tough road trip. I mean, you've got the 3-4, and then you've got to finish up against 3 of the best teams in the league in Washington.
I think you have to win the next 2 games. You have to be
next 3. Honestly, the next 3.
Yeah, I'd probably. Well, I'm just saying, especially the next 2, because Calgary and St. Louis are ahead of the Ducks. And so if you're looking at this from the playoff perspective and different things like that, with needing however many teams are ahead of the Ducks, these are must-win games. Like if the Ducks are going to get within, what are you saying, whispering distance, right?
If they want to be playing meaningful games, I guess these are the meaningful games. Like, they have to win these games.
Playing meaningful games in March.
Yeah. They have to win. Yeah.
You don't want to be playing meaningful games in January. They want to play. They want to be meaningful game. They want there to be meaningful games post deadline.
They have to split this road trip realistically to stay in the mix.
I think they have to win They have to beat Calgary, which isn't the road trip, but they have to beat Calgary. They have to beat St. Louis, and then I think they have to beat Philly, and they have to get one out of those next 4.
Yeah. Which is a tall ask. But John Gibson and Lucas Dostal are part of this team. And those guys are the point winners this season.
Can I give you what my suggestion for what this team should do would be? Because from the lineup perspective.
I mean, I don't know what you do right now with this lineup.
I think you take Troy Terry away from Strome and Vatrano at this point.
Oh, sure. I agree with that. I just don't think they'll do it.
No, this is what I would do, to be clear. Okay. What I would do. To help things out, I think that, while, yes, Strome, Vatrano, Terry has worked. They have declined a bit. The goals for percentage has dropped a bit.
They're getting outplayed.
They are not playing as good as they were at one point in time. This is actually the perfect time to break it up. You put Troy Terry with Mason McTavish and Cutter Gauthier and give you a true number one line there. And one that is potentially going to be one for a long time. It also puts Cutter Gauthier in a great position going into Philly, playing with Troy Terry, playing with Mason McTavish.
Yeah.
So having Robbie Fabry, you have Troy Terry there.
The homecoming.
And then I would keep Alex Killorn with Leo Carlson, but take Brett Leeson off that line and put Ryan Strome there.
Yeah, I really don't think Leeson is adding a whole lot to that experiment.
I think Ryan Strome adds a good off-puck presence to be with Leo Carlson.
And he can make some plays. He can actually keep things going. Yeah.
And then while Zegras is out, I think for the time being, maybe you just go Vatrano, Lundestrom, Fabry as a third line.
What was Zegras' timeline again? Wasn't it like end of January?
Yeah, but he's skating and like taking contact in board battles and stuff like that, I guess. But he's had long kind of wind ups before though. True.
Like remember last year he was skating for like almost a month.
Yeah, but
before
we
he came
don't
back.
know what that injury was, or was that the ankle?
That was the ankle.
But that was a fracture, like maybe a little bit different. Like the knee. Yeah, I mean
knees are sketchy.
Knees are a bit sketchy. I would not be shocked if he's playing on the road trip.
I would be shocked if that happened.
He had that or I guess it wasn't a quote, but he was talking, I guess, to John Allers and Brian Hayward during the intermission, not on camera, but John Allers relayed that he's feeling great and hoping he can beat the timeline.
Well, of course he's going to say that. I mean, it's Trevor Zegras. The guy, the guy's pure energy.
But regardless, I think as a third line, you do Vatrano, Lundestrom, Fabry.
Right? I agree with what you're saying. I just, it's hard for me to even think about it because they're not going to change anything about this lineup until they start losing.
Fair. Good point.
Also, the lines aren't, I think McTavish, Gauthier, and I'll say it, Fabry, that line is producing offense. Like Fabry is scoring goals.
Sure. Something has to happen with the Leo line though.
But I just think, man, I have been watching really closely Leo Carlson these last 5 games, and I'm starting to get a little worried just because he's really not at all in a position, he's not surrounded by the line mates that are really going to bring the most out of him. I think Killorn is fine, but Leeson is certainly not it. And so then when it's really down to Killorn, that's not great. So he's just having to do a lot on his own very often, and he's not the best at reading when he should go at it alone and when he should involve teammates. So he's turning the puck over a lot. He's looking really frustrated. Like there was a play, there was a power play. I think it was against Edmonton, the last Edmonton game, where he missed a pass on a power play, and he had terrible body language. Like he was looking to the skies. He skated back very slowly. Like he looks visibly frustrated right now, and that's just not good. Like you need him. He has the most offensive potential right now of anyone on this team. You need to find a way to unlock that, and it just feels like until the Strome, Vatrano, Terry line isn't a thing anymore, we're kind of stuck with this reality. Yeah, that's why Zegras coming back would be so beneficial.
It kind of forces their hand in terms of shaking up the lineup.
Yeah, I also do think that Carlson is struggling in his own ways. There are a lot of turnovers. There are a lot of bad turnovers in his game right now. But
yeah, and then from a defense perspective, I would probably sit one of Brian Dumoulin or Radko Gudas at some point to get, or just sit Drew Hellison. Pavel Mintyukov, as much as I've been
why is Hellison a fixture?
As much as I've been pro Drew Hellison at various points in time, he should not be playing over Pavel Mintyukov and Olin Zellweger.
Yeah. Also.
And just from a pure number perspective, The Dumoulin Trouba pairing, I know you said you're okay with it. The numbers haven't been great though for it.
Well, they're playing too much. Like
Yeah.
I'm fine with that pairing in principle, but they should not be playing over 20 minutes a night.
Well, and what we have is like Pavel Minchkov with Brian Dumoulin has good numbers, and like Olin Zellweger with Jacob Trouba, like that from a concept perspective makes sense.
Yep, I agree.
And so it's like you have that right there. Why not go for that? Or if you want to really shake things up, Jackson Lacombe and Olin Zellweger played well together. Put those two together, and then have Pavel Minchkov with Jacob Trouba or Radko Gudas, Brian Dumoulin with the other.
I have a hot take.
What's up?
I think Radko Gudas has been playing a little better of late.
Yeah, but he's
still
from being awful.
He's still making mistakes, but I do think that the Lacombe Gudas pairing is looking a little.
That Jets game was rough for him, even though he had a goal and an assist.
The Jets game was really bad. That was easily his worst game. But he had some games where I was like, "Oh, that's the Gudas I remember from last year." So it's just very weird how like the range of outcomes for him is so wide. But hey, even in that game where he was really bad against the Jets, he still scored a very important goal.
Like I said,
like
goal and assist, but still played pretty bad in that game.
But at least he made up for it value-wise in that game. At least. But yeah, if it were up to me...
he gave up a goal directly, but sure.
Yeah, but then he scored one.
Yeah, neutralized his negativity.
That's what I'm saying. But in that, I think I would probably ditch the kitty pairing and go for something a little more evenly spread out.
Yep.
I really just think you need to trade Brian Dumoulin.
Yep.
I mean, I know that they love that pairing, but this just feels untenable. Like you just can't keep this going forever. Like someone, it's not good for their kind of mentalities, the young kids, to be potentially out for 3 games at a time, which is what's happening right now. And I actually don't think Minchikov's been playing that poorly. I think he's been playing better.
Can I read this quote that I slightly mentioned, but want to just read exactly what he said? This was after the Fowler trade. It was asked to him, how difficult has it been to sit one of your young defensemen each night? I know it's been kind of rotated, but how difficult had that become to have to sit them out? And here's Verbeek's quote. It becomes a problem in the sense that the younger players don't understand, and it's hard to explain that to them. We have to keep rotating guys because we don't want to keep guys sitting on the sidelines too long and because they don't deserve to sit out. I've been fairly happy with how our young group has been performing, and it becomes difficult for them to understand. That's when you start to run into problems. I don't want them to have to go through that when they don't have to.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of where I circle back to of you have Verbeek saying this right here, yet bringing in Trouba keeps the same exact thing happening. Like the whole reason you trade Fowler is to avoid this situation. And granted, this situation doesn't happen without Drew Helleson coming up and playing well, but Drew Helleson was up and playing well when Verbeek gave this quote. And so it's just a very odd situation of it's clear that Verbeek does not like this, yet it's continuing to happen. So he has to have some buy off on it. So something has to happen here, right?
If Dumoulin gets traded at the deadline, how will you feel about this?
That's way too long for this to have been going on. So I'll feel bad. This is what we talked about when the Trouba trade happened, right? Of if they move Fowler instantly and move Dumoulin within a couple weeks, then it's more of a neutral, right?
Yeah.
But the longer it goes on, if Dumoulin is traded at the deadline, then it becomes a negative because you are having to sit one of these guys. And this was exactly what we talked about when that trade happened, right? Like we dove into this. I think that was on a Patreon podcast, though. So, but we dove into that of like, that was the biggest issue of like, you are now going to be taking minutes and ice time away from these younger guys as a result of this.
But what it feels like to me is that it does feel like they abandoned a little bit this idea of we can play 4 kids and be competitive.
Which is so odd because when you look at
I feel like they did turn on that a bit.
Which is so odd because if you look at like their numbers during that stretch, like that was one of their best stretches of the season. Was when they had 4 young defensemen in the lineup. Like,
but that
was the Kings game, like the Kraken games. Like they played really well in that stretch. If you look at the defensive numbers, that was their best defensive stretch.
They just seem to have given up on it a little bit. Also, I feel like the game against the Oilers, the game where Zellweger came in against the Oilers, like he looked really off. Like, did you see that turnover he had in the corner where he has the puck on his backhand and he just fans on it?
Yep.
I mean, that's very uncharacteristic for Olin Zellweger, and I think that that's really what's crappy about the situation is that he was one of their best defensemen for a long time, and now he's just kind of this victim of circumstance.
It's very hard to come out of the lineup, sit for multiple games, and then come back in and expect to play well.
Especially against the Oilers. Like, it's just...
Well,
and
just in general, like, I think I was against the Habs. I think Pavel Minchikov came back after being scratched, and I remember he didn't look great. And I was like, no shit, he doesn't look great, like, in my head. Like, he's been sitting for 4 games. Like, it's really hard to come back and play at an NHL pace when you are a young player and sitting for a week or 2 weeks. Like, that's not a good situation and not good for their development. Like,
but I think that that's why they're doing it this way, because it's like, well, okay, that first game back is going to be rough, but then you're going to get like a 3-game runway to play,
which is
and then
also not great. Like, playing 3 games and then sitting 3 games, like,
it just feels like they're doing like a mini Leo plan with these 2 guys, is what it feels like to me. And like,
Yeah.
I think that they've chosen that we'd rather do it this way than to have them like basically switching off games. This might be better.
The issue with that thought process, because someone in our chat's bringing up the Leo plan, is that this is different than that. The Leo plan was just sitting 1 game a week. This is sitting multiple games, which could last
On
about
end.
a week.
Yeah.
And so and then having it come in cold and be expected to perform. Like, this is not a load management situation. This is a sitting for a week.
Well, like, for example, if Minchikov sits the next 3 games, he will not have played since the Winnipeg game. Like, it's just like that's over a week off. And so I think that I can't imagine that this is going to last. Yep. But man, if they extend Brian Dumoulin, I will be very confused. I guess I wouldn't even be confused. I'll just be like, oh, well, then they're trading someone like that. Like, they're trading a young defenseman.
2 young defensemen.
I mean, something like it's just pointless to have one of these guys as your 7th defenseman at that point.
Like, you're going to have, and like, you have Tristan Luneau also.
Well,
coming.
he needs to make the NHL first.
Sure, but it seems like Pat Verbeek is in love with the player.
I agree, but I'm just saying, I think that if Tristan Luneau comes in next year and plays great in training camp, he will have a spot. They will make it work for him. I would be shocked if he isn't on the team because of this. But yeah, I mean, right now the right side is locked up for next season.
Yeah.
Gudas, Trouba, and Helleson.
Yep.
I don't know. Does Drew Helleson get traded? I mean, I think Drew Helleson can be a 7th defenseman, and it's fine.
Yeah, I would agree. He's the one where you let him sit, and it doesn't really matter that much.
Like, he's good. I like him a lot, but I think it's okay if he sits. It's just not the end of the world. I think that Minchikov and Zellweger are different because those guys have true potential game-breaking talents. I think
Helleson should be playing over like a Radko Gudas.
But
that's neither here nor... That's a different conversation.
Zellweger and Minchikov also are younger. Like, they need these reps.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Agreed.
Yep. Interesting.
Okay.
Well, is that all we've got?
Yeah. We're over an hour. You want to get to questions?
Sure.
All right. We're going to start with our Patreon Discord. So go to patreon.com/crashthepond, and this goes back to in 2024, some of these questions. Hazmat said, assuming everyone is healthy, what is your ideal lineup for the Ducks? I mean, we kind of ran through that a little bit, but...
Yeah, we did
already.
that.
But Ramahan said, Strome looks like a different player this year. Would you say it's him playing center or the Troy Terry effect?
I think mostly the Terry effect. But it's like, it's not to take away from him. It's just that he's in a better position to show his talents. It makes sense that he'll look better.
Yeah. Malarkey said, hypothetical, if the Ducks were to acquire Pettersson from Vancouver, which of these 2 potential free agents do you target harder, Marner or Rantanen?
I think I like Rantanen better for the Ducks.
Man, if they get Pettersson, I don't know how you make that fit with Rantanen, but...
No, I don't think that would actually work. Also, do you think Elias Pettersson's actually getting traded? I mean, it's...
it feels like it.
I feel like they're likelier to trade JT Miller than Elias Pettersson.
I don't. JT Miller has trade protection. Pettersson doesn't.
But, like, why would they trade Elias Pettersson, I guess, is my question.
Because of this whole situation and shit show around it.
It's so crazy that might actually happen.
I
What
know.
do you think happened? Like, someone pissed in someone's cereal? Like what?
Let's go with that. Sure. I have no clue.
We had this long conversation over the weekend, but
We did.
I'm not sure that I would want to trade for Elias Pettersson right now.
I think, yeah, we didn't really discuss it too much outside of our it was in pub chat actually. Now thinking about it,
Yeah,
but
it was public.
if it was Zegras or McTavish, like a 1-for-1, I would do it.
Oh, I don't know.
Why is Monica now jumping in? My wife is now in the YouTube chat, so everyone say hi to her. If it was if it was a 1-for-1, I'd probably do that.
I don't think I'd do it.
I would do it. I don't know if I would, how much I would be willing to add because the cap hit to it.
Yeah, it would have to be 1-for-1. I'm just not adding. I'm not adding to that mix just to go and get Pettersson.
All right. Hammock M said, there's been discussion about the last 5 games being ugly wins or lucky wins. Is it possible for a bad team to have a 4-1 stretch against all contenders? Wouldn't that require a little bit too much luck? Bad teams don't usually go on a 4-1 stretch against cup contenders. Isn't it just as likely that this is a good team getting ugly wins as good teams do? How much should we rely on analytics versus eye test and bottom line results?
Well, that's the thing, is that I think that you have to, like, the first 2 games of that 5-game stretch, they were good.
Yeah.
So you're really talking about 3 games, one of which they lost. So you're really talking about 2 games, and it's like, yeah, good teams can get lucky wins. That happens, and that's why if we are to believe that the Ducks are this new and improved team, then they're going to have to show it over the next few games here, over this next little stretch, and so we'll see. But if we just look at the body of work that they've shown this season, it's more likely, just based off what we've seen so far, it's more likely that it's a continuation of what they've been than it is,
And
they're all of a sudden a good team getting a little lucky.
And
but
to
we'll
answer
see.
and to answer his question about is it possible for a bad team to have a 4-1 stretch against all cup contenders? If you have Vezina caliber goaltending, yes.
And that's the thing; they've been getting great goaltending. So
Yeah,
and,
like at the end of the
yeah.
day, it's still only a 5-game sample size where anything can kind of happen. Where you could play bad and go 4-1 in those games. And the question is, was the way you played repeatable for long-term success? And I think kind of with our dissection of how they played, they didn't really play outside the Edmonton game, yes, New Jersey game, but they're overall in totality over these 5 games, it wasn't much different than kind of how they've played through the entirety of the season. Yes, the opponents were better, but this is kind of who they've been. And so I think it's possible that this is just a bad team that got really great goaltending and had a couple of good games in there. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe they start playing well overall down as they keep going. Like we talked about, there are positives there that can be built upon. But the real question is, what are their takeaways from this stretch?
Yep.
So, let's see. Brad said, aside from a new coach, what do the Ducks need to become a legitimate contender?
I think that they need one more top 6 / top 9 forward. I think that they need another piece because it feels like we've got Zegras, McTavish, Gauthier, Terry, Carlson, but it feels like you just need one more guy to kind of bring that all together. And ideally someone that kind of has a different skill set than those guys do. Like more of a finisher type maybe. Like, hey, maybe a Mikko Rantanen. Huh.
Hey, maybe. Maybe Elias Pettersson.
Nah.
Damn.
Drama queen.
Brad, let's see. And he also said the Pacific is a monster division. Who do the Ducks beat out to crack the top 3?
I mean, they don't.
No, I think that this is like maybe it's like an eventual question. I think Vancouver is going to go on a downturn if they trade Elias Pettersson.
Oh, are we talking like long term?
That's how I'm viewing this.
Because I think current term, I mean, if we're talking about this season, let's just say this season, I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
But if we're talking longer term, I mean, I still don't hate the Canucks long term because of the young kind of core that they have.
I think moving Pettersson hurts them though.
But that hasn't happened, and we don't know if that's going to happen.
I'm assuming that's going to happen.
I think the Kings are more a team that I could see falling off, because even if the Canucks lose Pettersson, they still have Quinn Hughes, and Quinn Hughes is very, very good.
Vegas for me.
I mean, sure, but like I just don't think Vancouver is at the top of that list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and hell, even Edmonton at some point, like they're gonna get older. things are going to happen. We'll see if that day will. I mean, we'll see what 30-something-year-old Connor McDavid looks like, but at some point he's going to slow down. So
Yep. And then I'm going to go to Twitter right now. We have Hockey South chimed in saying, Happy New Year. Hope you guys and all the listeners enjoyed the holidays. Had 3 questions for you.
3.
First one, should Minchikov go to the AHL for a while?
I would prefer him not to, but if that's what it's going to take to get him to just play consistently, I wouldn't hate it either.
Is Trouba Dumoulin the best Ducks defensive D pair since Lindholm Manson? Sorry, Hockey South. No,
I would disagree.
I don't think that they're the best defensive pair on this team.
I don't think they're necessarily a good defensive pair. I don't think they're as bad as the number folks will say, but I don't think that they're great. So
no, they're not very good. They're good, I guess, if you view defending as being in zone only.
Yeah, they do that.
But they do that because they cannot get the puck out of their zone.
I don't even think they're that terrible at breaking it out, honestly. I think both guys are okay at breaking the puck out. It's just the problem is that both guys really benefit from being kind of the number 2 in a puck moving tandem. Yes. And the problem is that they're playing together. So,
yep.
Yeah.
3, how good can Jackson Lacombe be?
Man, that question is an interesting one because, like I said earlier, he is playing the best he's ever played with the Ducks, and he is playing. He's been their best player recently. Like he changes the game when he joins the rush the way that he does, and so. I still am a little cautious to say, oh, he's going to be a first pairing defenseman, but I think he's proving that he can be a top pairing offensive kind of complementary defenseman power play type. Like not a guy that you're necessarily truly relying upon to shut down the opposition, although he had a really good defensive sequence against Jack Hughes recently, but he's playing his way into that top pairing conversation. Like, does that make sense? Like, not a true top pairing guy, but someone who can play on a top pairing and contribute in the right situation.
Yeah, I definitely do. And the one thing I think to keep in mind for a lot of people out there that might be down on Zellweger and Minchikov because of how good Jackson Lacombe looks, keep in mind the age. Yeah, I was about to say, keep in mind the age difference. A lot of people may not realize that, but he's 2019 draft, whereas Olen Zellweger is the 2021.
I mean,
and was extremely young for the 21 draft.
Lacombe is going to be 24 in 3 days.
Yeah. And like Minchikov and Zellweger
he's entering his prime. Yeah.
So, like, he's got 3 years on them.
And also, Jackson Lacombe was not looking like this a couple of years ago. Like, it just takes time. And so I'm not really worried. I mean, Olen Zellweger was a second-round pick.
Agreed.
Minchikov is the one where it's like, yes, 10th overall pick, you want to see him get there faster, but he's still very young. So
yeah. Well, and I guess that maybe this is like a sign of things for people out there kind of judging Pavel Minchikov and how he's playing this year is that he is significantly younger than Jackson Lacombe. And look at what Lacombe was like last season and how he had to really kind of figure it out.
And also Minchikov never played in the AHL. He went directly from junior to the NHL. So
did I say AHL?
No. I'm putting that out there. Like he's had a bit of a trial by fire.
Technically, Jackson Lacombe didn't either, though.
Yeah, but he
played college.
He played college. I mean, college to me is kind of like equivalent of AHL. It's just more development time.
Yep. All right. And then had a question from Clark saying, what are your thoughts, concerns on Carlson's play? Is he struggling? Is it line mates? Also McTavish and his struggles.
So, yeah, Lacombe played 4 years of college. Like, that is basically an AHL apprenticeship, in my opinion.
Yep.
Carlson is not playing that well. He does have good moments here and there. A lot of it is line mates. And I think it's just the situation is really dragging him down. I think McTavish is playing...
I think he's playing great.
I think he's playing as well as he's played all season. Like, he is...
Agreed.
There are still... there's still kind of a lack of offense, but man, they have I know Robbie Fabry's scoring. I know I'm going to get attacked for this take, but I think Robbie Fabry is a negative for that line, despite the fact that he's scoring. Like, he's scoring because those other two guys are so good. Like, the amount of just bad turnovers that Robbie Fabry has a game is like multiple bad
Picture
turnovers.
If Troy Terry was on that line.
Yeah, and then like even Brian Hayward called out Robbie Fabry in overtime against, I think it was against
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. He was groaning about a turnover that Fabry, and like Fabry does that a lot. Like there's a lot. And so anyway, all this to say that I'm not really worried about McTavish. I would like to see a little more offense, but he's playing well. And then same thing for Carlson.
Yep. And then he also said another question is, what free agent would you like the Ducks to go after this summer, Marner or Rantanen?
For me, it's Rantanen. I mean, Marner might be the better player, but I think Rantanen makes more sense within what they already have. Just a pure finisher.
Yep. And then I guess this leads us to Twitch and YouTube. So throw questions in the chat if you've got them. But for those of you listening on your favorite podcast services, you can find us whenever we go live at twitch.tv/crashspawn. Where if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime Gaming sub every month, and it is free to you. Helps out more than you can imagine. And then another way to support us is go to youtube.com/crashthepond. And let's get some likes from everyone in the chat if you're enjoying this video. But if you have a YouTube account, and yes, I know everyone listening to this, you have YouTube accounts. My wife chimed in the YouTube chat because she has a YouTube account with all the videos that she watches throughout the day. Everyone has one. Subscribe to our channel. Like our videos. It's something that's completely free to you, but helps us with the algorithm. If you want to throw some money our way, there are super chats, which does help, but that is not necessary. And our good friend Lou, in the YouTube chat, is saying he doesn't have a YouTube account. Would you like to attack him?
I mean, that tracks for Lou.
Yeah, yep, definitely. So Hardcore Luchador asked us in our Twitch chat saying, who is the second star of the month? And so actually he meant week in the NHL. That was one Troy Terry.
Yep.
What do you think of Terry's game so far?
He's playing.
We didn't really talk about him during our breakdown of the games.
Well, because it's more of the same. I mean, that's why this whole 5-game stretch has just not really been that remarkable to me, because it's more of the same. I mean, Troy Terry is carrying this team offensively. He's providing that offensive production that they need to be in these games. He's been very good. He has some plays stick handling the puck in small spaces in a phone booth where it's just like, man, he continues to be the only truly reliable offensive producer on this team. And like until that isn't true anymore, this team is kind of stuck where they are, of just like trying to get into meaningful games. But Troy Terry needs help. Get Troy Terry help. Maybe get him on a line with more natural offensive talents. Maybe that might help.
Oh, man. Picture him with McTavish and Gauthier with how they're playing.
Yeah. Him and Gauthier would be great together.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen that yet. Have we?
Nope.
Yeah.
We might have seen it one game and then Cronin gave up on it, which would track.
We even did. Logan said, how long will it take for Zegras to make an impact after he returns? At what point pace will he average to the end of the season? Will he play at center?
I mean, I would guess he'll play at the wing, just because that's what Cronin had him at.
Even though he said he's a number one center.
I mean, Greg Cronin doesn't get offensive hockey. He just doesn't.
I may get to the.
Does he get defensive hockey? I'm not sure about that either.
Does he get NHL caliber hockey at this point?
I mean, 4 out of the last 5 scoreboard.
Why?
I mean, I don't think he's a good NHL coach. I think
settled in on that opinion. Let me ask you this. Sorry, this is a question for me before we get back to it.
Uh-huh.
There's been a lot of hullabaloo about
Hullabaloo?
Hullabaloo? What?
Yes.
I don't know.
Hullabaloo.
We're an hour 23.
We're in the witching hours.
Yeah. There's been a lot of chatter about David Carl with him leading Team USA. Yeah. And I know we talked about wanting to have NHL experience with the next head coach because Greg Cronin is not going to be the coach for this team when they are contending. Do you think David Carl is someone, granted not having NHL experience, but someone that this team should really look at and maybe interview and really kind of try to pursue, with the fact that he has connections with Troy Terry, the fact that he knows how to coach younger players, even though he doesn't have NHL experience, and there is the potential of it being a similar situation to a Greg Cronin or a Dallas Eakins, with all of that being there?
Yeah, they should interview him. They should see what he's all about. But I don't know how to say this without sounding like a bitter Team Canada fan. But
that's where you're going.
like, is it? How do we separate what he's done as a coach versus the roster of Team USA versus who they've played against?
I'm not even just talking about the World Juniors. I'm also
Well, I
talking
know,
about what he's done in
but people
college.
do though. People do, and also like Denver University is not this like awful roster either. Like
No.
yes, he's a good coach. He seems to say and think the right things, but like I guess I'm a little more skeptical of these kind of guys than I used to be. I mean, that Team USA roster was fantastic, and
100%.
he had a hand in picking it. But like, I just don't know how much credit I can give for winning with that.
I think my point in this is that I think he's done a really good job developing guys also at Denver.
But here's the thing, though.
He knows how to coach these younger players.
By the time the Ducks are good again, they're not going to need that. They're going to need a
Fair.
guy who can go and win games. Maybe he still is that. I guess I want him to be the next great young coach and come in and be awesome right away. I just don't know if I want to be the team being the one to find out first.
How would you feel if the Ducks let Greg Cronin go at the end of the season and hired David Carl?
I think honestly the sooner they can hire him the better, because I think right now they are still in a little bit of a developmental phase. And so I think if you're going to hire him faster. If you're going to wait another year or so, then it's not really going to be worth it as much by that point.
Yep.
But I
would agree.
I personally think, I kind of agree with Logan in our chat. I think that you need someone with more of a track record.
That's
Now
fair.
you could argue that he does have a track record. It's just not in the NHL.
Yeah.
But World Junior success, it's nice. But that USA team was like head and shoulders better than everyone else. So
You're also seeing, I mean, just for example, Andre Tournier doing really well in Utah. His claim to fame was coaching Canada at the World Juniors.
yeah, but he was also, I mean, he was a good major junior coach too. And like, it's still taking time.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's not impossible. I'm not discounting that. It's just, if I want to go in and win and turn the corner, I would just be a little concerned. A little concerned about someone with no NHL experience.
For sure. Just wanted to bring that up. But getting back to his whole point, Zegras, point pace when he returns.
I'll go with a point every 2 games. How about that? Half a point per game.
So at the end of the season, or are we talking about during
Just the pace he would have during that stretch.
I will go
Point per game? 0.75?
Let's do 0.8 points per game.
Okay. I think he's going to be really good once he comes back.
Yeah, 0.5 I think is way too low. That's a 40-point season.
I think that we're just forgetting. Well, yeah, but I'm accounting for like the bad offensive environment that he's going to be in.
Yeah, I still think that if he's going to be coming out like playing well, I'm expecting more than that from him.
I feel like the power play really misses him dearly.
Oh, it really, really does. I think our good friend Jack posted on Twitter the difference in the power play numbers pre-Zegras and post-Zegras, and it's startling.
The power play looks really rough, and I think teams have kind of figured out the Ducks a little bit, and they're now adjusting.
Yeah.
I also think that, I mean, this is part of the issue with this whole blue line situation is Zellweger was their top power play guy. Even when Lacombe, I mean, even with all of Lacombe's greatness this season, Zellweger was the first unit power play guy for a while. And now he's just not playing as much. And so now you're putting in Minchikov in there, Minchikov's just not good on the power play right now. I mean, he struggles to break the puck out. And part of it is he doesn't play every game. He has to sit out for a while, so he can't build that comfort and that reliability. So there's a lot of structural issues with the power play right now, and one of them is missing Trevor Zegras.
Yep. So that's going to do it for questions, and we are almost an hour and a half. Do you have anything you want to also get to?
I have a blind ranking for you.
Okay.
But this one is going to rock your world.
Uh-oh.
This one is going to rock your socks. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Blind rank all-time Anaheim Ducks goaltenders.
Oh, boy.
I downloaded the list of every goalie that's ever played, and I'm putting it into a name randomizer. So it's going to pick one at random.
Okay. What's my criteria here? Or is it just whatever my heart desires?
However you wish to rank them. Because
best, what I like the most.
it doesn't matter.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
it straight up does not matter.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to start with. Oh man, I don't like this as a start, but we have to. We have to abide by the randomizer. James Reimer. So by the way,
That's an easy 5.
just so that for those who don't know, blind ranking is you have to rank things without knowing what comes next.
Without a doubt, 5.
Okay, you're ranking him 5 out of 5.
What
Okay.
he played? What, 2 games, right?
Yep.
There have to be I count on one
Ooh.
hand the goalies with less than that. Timo
I-
Pielmeyer, Eero Tarkey come to mind for goalies that have 1 game played.
I have a tough one for you next.
Okay.
Anthony Stolars.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with he just doesn't have the longevity. But good. Do I do 4? Do I do 3? 4 or 3? Let's go with. I'm gonna go with 3. I think there's a possibility of having a lot of other guys that aren't great.
He was really good. I think
Yeah.
he never got his full credit.
He was very good, just wasn't here that long.
He also just didn't play a lot of games.
Yeah, so
even
that's
when he
why,
was here.
That's why I was between 3 and 4, but I'll go 3.
Up next, Dustin Tokarski.
That's a 4. How many games did Dustin Tokarski play as a
I don't know.
Is it
You're gonna-
more or less than James Reimer?
You're gonna have to look that one up.
I will look it up. Want to take a guess?
7.
Dustin Tokarski.
I feel like it's more than that, but I'll say 7.
Let's see what I can get to very quickly. Let's see if it's more than the 2 games that Reimer played. It's 1.
Oh shit. Okay.
Damn it! I should have had him and Reimer flip. Oh, he did not. Okay, he played 1 game, and it was as a backup in 16-17.
I think I watched that game. I feel like
Played
I remember
9
watching.
minutes. Played 9 minutes. 9 minutes 47 seconds. But here's the kicker. I should have him at number 1, to be honest.
Why?
5 shots on goal, 5 saves.
I mean,
1,000 save percentage.
anyway,
Okay.
up next, Mike O'Neill.
God damn it.
Do you know who this is? 'Cause
I
I
actually
don't.
don't. I guess he has to be 3, or he has to be 2, I guess. God, I got screwed.
And now you understand the danger. All right,
Mike
your
O'Neill, I'm looking right now. He also played 1 game. He does not have. I don't know if he started this game or ended this game, but he played half a game, 31 minutes.
Oh my god,
He allowed 3 goals on 10 shots.
that's
In
really bad.
1996, 1997.
All right, do you want to know your number 1?
Okay.
Ryan Miller. Ooh,
Ooh, I'll take that.
you got out of jail
Okay.
free.
Realistically, Mike O'Neill should be 5.
All right, how about this? I'll give you a do-over. Now that you know like the kind of names that you can
'Kay.
get, I feel like
'Kay.
you should do a do-over.
'Kay.
Now that you understand the
Yeah.
perils.
Oh, I knew the perils.
I don't know if you did because you
I
made some
did.
choices.
I did, but you know,
The e-bug should be in here. What was his name?
Tom Hodges.
Weren't there 2? There was an e-bug who didn't actually get into a game. Laurie was his name. Something. Jeff.
There was
Laurie?
also, Jeff Laurie, but there was also
Yeah.
why am I spacing on his name? Rollison? Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Dwayne
He
Rolson.
had to be an e-bug.
All right. Anyway. All right. Let's do this again. Let's try this again. Now that you've warmed up a bit. Oh my God. Okay. The first one was James Reimer, but I have to do that again. Okay. Ron Tugnut.
Ron Tugnut. Ugh. I guess I'll do a solid 3.
Okay.
Knowing the perils that could be coming here,
Yeah. I feel like he actually played a decent amount of games, didn't he?
he probably did. Yes. Let's see. Goalies, Ron Tugnut. If I sort by games played, Ron Tugnut, where are you? Why is he not even popping up for? Oh yeah, he played 28 games. He played 1 season, the first season. He was
Okay.
an inaugural Duck though.
Yeah. I think 3 is a good spot for him.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, Steve Shields. Didn't he play a few games too?
He played 33 games.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna go with God. Do I go with the perils of of putting him? He played more games, so I'll put him at 2.
Oh
ahead
my
of Ron
God.
Tugnut.
This is going to be hilarious. You're going to get some weird ass. Okay, anyway. Up next, Ilya Bryzgalov.
I have to go
Ooh.
1.
Logically, he should go 1, but I feel like
Logically, he should go 1.
you should leave that open though.
No, nope, I'm doing it.
Oh man, now you're gonna get like Jaguar and Gibson.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got Brizgalov at 1, Shields at 2, and Tugnut at 3. Let's
Yeah.
see who is up next. Victor Faust.
That's fine with him being 4. Played only slightly more than Ron Tugnut.
Okay, was good in those games though.
915 save percentage. Ron Tugnut, 908 in the early 90s.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
I remember having Victor Faust back when I played fantasy hockey, and he was like great those first few games he played.
Yeah.
Anyway, and your number 5 is Tom Askey. Who the hell is Tom Askey?
Played 1 game for the Ducks. Played 7 games for the Ducks.
7?
Misspoke there. 7 games.
I'm looking at a picture of him right now.
Had an 894 save percentage.
Also, Tom Askey has one of the most epic handlebar mustaches you'll ever see.
Man,
He must have done.
Remember Reto Berra?
Yeah, I liked Roto Berra.
Man, you want to listen to the names of guys that all played 1 game for the Ducks?
I'm posting this picture of Tom Askey in our Discord. You should look at it.
I will
Look
in
at
a minute.
Look at this facial hair.
All right, let's see. Oh my!
He just
for
he
some
looked-
reason that facial hair tracks with that name.
He looks like he lost a bet the way he's smiling in that picture.
Yeah.
Um,
So here are the guys that played 1 game for the Ducks:
Okay.
Dustin Tokarski, Eero Tarkey, Timo Pielmeyer, Mike O'Neill, Tom Hodges, Ole Erikssonek, and Sebastian Caron.
He only played 1?
Who?
Caron?
Yeah.
Wow.
He was like a trade deadline acquisition by the team.
I remember him as a Penguin. I think that's why I'm getting him confused.
He was the 3rd goalie on the Cup team.
Oh yeah, okay. That must be what I'm remembering him as.
Yeah. There's like pictures of him in gold pads lifting the cup.
Oh man. Oh, so those were the
No, I think he got pads for the Ducks and got gold ones.
Were those still his Penguins pads?
I don't think so.
Let's see. I'm looking for the picture of him.
No, he was a Blackhawk he was a Blackhawk that season
Dang.
prior to being a Duck.
Are we sure those jerseys were good?
I like him. I like the NHL Edge version better than
Really?
that version. Yes, I like the collar on the NHL Edge version better.
I think I disagree.
I like the collar a lot more.
I really need to come up with a ranking for blind ranking the like goalie pad setups because Brizgalov's pads in the 07 playoffs with the black and red, black and orange.
Wow.
Yeah, sorry, black and orange Vons. Those were elite.
What do you think was better, his black and orange or his eggplant?
I mean, eggplant for sure.
Like, look up his set from the 05-06 run.
Okay, let's see. Oh, I think I do remember that. I think I might actually.
He had, I think, 3 straight shutouts against the Colorado Avalanche, if I'm remembering correctly.
I remember when he came into those games. No, I'm going with the black and orange, actually.
Okay.
It's because it's just straight eggplant. Like, it's not. I don't know. Man, those Reebok pads he had. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The Ducks really need to bring back those colors in some form or fashion.
J.S. Jaguar's Reebok pads were really good, though.
Yeah.
I loved that pattern that he had in 06-07.
Oh yeah.
Angled one.
Yeah, he never had bad pads. He always had a good setup.
The 06-07 Reebok pads were so much better than what they came afterwards with the swooping. The angle that they had was a lot better than the swoop that came.
I mean,
this is a very niche conversation.
You're talking to the exact right person though, because this was my childhood.
Same.
I had a pair of they were called the Premier 3s, which were the ones with the swooping design. I had the Flurry ones, which were like all white with the single. Remember, he had like the single gold stripe.
Yes.
So I actually like those. For me, I like the Premier 1s from 05-06 and the Premier 3s over the Premier 2s, which were the ones Jaguar had in 07.
I don't know if Jaguar had better pads than his 03 Cup final run.
The Cohos?
The Cohos.
I don't know why.
Those are so good.
I love the Coho pads, but that color in particular just... I don't know why.
I think it works.
Because he had a white version of those, which I think were a lot better.
No, I think I think this worked better.
The white with the jade stripes was way better.
Okay, I'm seeing that picture now.
Yeah, you gotta agree.
Yeah,
I mean, the
but
other one wasn't bad. I think those are more like iconic.
yeah,
Also, like,
man,
why did he go silver stripes? That's
because there
kind of,
was the silver on the jersey.
but it's like a very minimal color on the jersey.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
like it honestly.
if we're talking best setups, it'll always be Jonas Hiller.
Uh, now I'm trying to remember what
Wow.
his pads were like.
Jonas Hiller just, well, because he was always changing them.
Fair. I'm just trying to remember his pads though and compare. Like mask, yes. So okay, yeah.
So-
I forgot. That's his Coho pads. Yeah.
His coat, because Coho was coming back for a while,
Yeah.
like Goalie Monkey in Anaheim, or not Anaheim, I forget where they were located, but they brought back the Coho line and he wore them, and they looked so good in that modernized look.
they were kind of a Jaguar-esque pad looking at
They
the
were.
styling on it.
I mean, he wore the exact Jaguar pad in the 08 playoff run. Remember that playoff run he had against the Sharks?
Oh 09.
Or 09, sorry. Those were really good.
Man. Yeah, Hiller. Yeah, I come back to this. Hiller had great pads. His
He did.
his
He did.
his setup that he had. Man, we are just going into the depths here, but whatever.
The perils.
His pads for the 20th anniversary game and his setup for that game is one of the best looks
yeah.
I think any goalie has ever had for this team.
Oh yeah, for
Like
sure.
the mask that he had with, I think it was the white with the striping going around that was super matted out, and the pads.
Oh,
with
yeah.
that kind of triangular look with the eggplant and jade. It was such a good look.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to me how like goalie pads and styles have really gone down. Like the Habs just called up a goalie, Jakub Dobesh, who has these red pads, and it's like it's bringing me back to the days where goalies had like fun pads. Most goalies like Jukka Dostal and Gibson, and they just have these boring like white
Is Jonas
pads.
Hiller the most slept on goalie in Ducks history?
I don't think he is. I mean, he's not. I don't sleep on him because he was. I have like core memories of Jonas Hiller. Like before I ever really followed the Ducks, I remember watching that series he had against the Sharks,
Yeah.
and he had so many of those crazy glove saves. Also, there's always something about a right catching goalie that just hits different. Like something about catching the puck with your right hand, just it makes it look cooler. Like he just stoned the Sharks that series. I'll never forget that. Like that was a great team, and he just dominated.
Yep.
So, yeah, Gibson's pads have just never, like, they're
His
just.
balls are fine.
Are they?
They're fine.
I'm looking at his pads now.
They're not.
Yeah,
great.
they're just
It's just
very.
generic.
They're very samey. They're very kind of like that's what modern goalie pads look like. Although Dostal's pads with the 30th anniversary though,
Yes.
those like that's what we need to be bringing back. Like bring back colored pads. Like stop
And
it with
I
the
like
white
the
base.
white on the inside also. I like that
Yes.
there was the contrast there.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. All right. We should get out of here. This was a lot of Jersey talk, but a lot of fun.
Wasn't Jersey talk. Pad talk. Pad talk is like an even. It's an even more
niche.
even more advanced version.
Even more niche than mask talk.
Ooh, I'm not as strong. I don't have as strong of opinions on masks because they're so personal to the goalie.
Yeah.
The only
Man.
thing I miss about masks back in the day is like you could see if if it was a simple design, you could really see it and it would stick out from far away. Whereas now the goalie masks are so detailed, you can't really see what they are from like on TV, for example. Although Dostal's mask currently,
I like it.
he has the Guillet Bear.
They both goalies do, actually.
It's kind of funny that he
Or
basically
no, Gibson doesn't anymore on his mask, but he used to.
but that is a good look. I will actually say that's a good look because it's simple. Like I like a simple but loud design. Like that's how it should be. Like someone on TV should be able to understand what your setup.
Man,
what
that's
your
why
mask
Jonas
has.
Hiller's masks were so good.
Well, remember when he just had the black mask?
Yep, it was good.
Remember when?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Remember when Martin Gerber had a black helmet and it was like all the rage for a little while?
Yep.
Yes, but some of Hiller's helmets were a little too out there though.
Ooh.
Like the matte look wasn't great.
Lou brought up a good one. Gibson's Kobe mask was really good.
Yeah, man, even when Hiller was on the Flames, his Flames pads were even crazier.
Yeah.
Oh my. He went like almost all like with that yellow, that like mustard yellow. Yeah, good times. Anyway, we should get out of here. Nobody's still listening. So
We got 50 people still here. Thank you all.
wow. Well, salute to all of you. But if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to support it, if you want it to keep going, there's a few really easy ways to do that. First and foremost, go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. The link is in the show notes. For $2 a month, you get access to our patrons-only Discord server where you get to communicate with us. You get to chat Ducks with us pretty much at any time of day. We're always in there. There's also a great community of diehard Ducks fans in there. But you can also chat really any sports. It's not limited to hockey, but really if you want to just kind of chat more with us, if you feel like you would have a good time with us, then that's a really easy way to do it. You can up that pledge to $7.50 a month. In addition to the Discord, you get 2 bonus podcasts a month, so 2 exclusive podcast episodes where we answer your questions and go more in depth on different topics like the Ducks and the broader NHL. You also get access to exclusive player breakdown videos like the ones you see on our YouTube channel. So that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. You can also leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't left us a review on Apple Podcasts, what better time than now? Start of the new year. Let's get a little review spike going, if you will. So go do that. You can also subscribe to us on Spotify. Leave us feedback there. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got the podcast. We've got additional videos there. Do that. Follow us on social media. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. Follow us there. And with that being said, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Enjoy the next bit of hockey here, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.